Hi there, or should I say, howdy, partner. Today we are painting Blondie, or should I say, the man with no name, Mr. Clint Eastwood. So, without further ado, let's crack on. We are starting with the model already prepared, primed and zenithaled, and as ever, we're going to start with the base. As we go along, the paints are going to be on screen again, so you can follow along or take note of the palette that we've used, whatever you prefer to do. So with this base, I wanted to show how dusty and dry his environment was. So we used lots of sandy, orange and grey tones to give that overall impression. So here you'll see me using a wash on the base. This allows the paint to collect in all the nooks and crannies, and then when you're dabbing off the paint, you're only dabbing off the surface, and that leaves paint in all the recesses and crevices of the model. And here you'll see me drying the model off, and it leaving those thicker, darker lines. So we're just on to doing some dry brushing over the edges of the model, just to give some high and low lights. So I'm using a grey here, and then what we'll do in a little bit, we're going to put another wash on it of a different colour. In fact, here it is. So we're going to use this rust wash, and we're just adding the wash in certain areas. We don't want to overpower the model with this, or dominate the model with just this one colour, and we're trying to keep that subtle, difference over the model itself. I think variation is the word I'm looking for, so we'll go for that. We want variation in the base. And then we are back to dry brushing. Again, we've got lighter tones, and we're going to bring those edges, not all the edges, but just some of the edges out. I like watching dry brushing. You can see the colours building, especially when you've got it fast forward, and you can see the difference happening. Looks cool, doesn't it? By introducing lighter and lighter shades of colour, you can pick out obviously different parts of the model. So here now I'm using one of the lightest highlights, and I'm just highlighting the stone. Moving on to his shoes, I think this you can really see where the zenithal helps. So we're just putting like an earth brown, I think it was, or an earth green down as the base colour. And once it dries, you can see how the dark parts of the zenithal remain dark. So we're just filling in the soles of his shoes there. And then again, on to dry brushing. And we're just picking out, with this light sandy colour, the tops of his shoes. And obviously, whatever we do to one shoe, we're going to do to the other. So the next step is to wash the shoes, and we're going to dunk. This absolutely scared the life out of me, I'm not going to lie. I just thought, oh, how lovely this shoe is that I've painted it. And now I'm going to put it on a clip and I'm going to dunk it. And here it is. I really had to just kind of take a deep breath and go for it. And I panicked looking at that. But you dab off the excess, off all the kind of surfaces, and again, it's the same theory. All the lower, the nooks and crannies, it holds the paint. Makes the shoe look dirty. So, yeah, I did not enjoy doing this. And I really cringed to do the other shoe, but I did it. Well done me. And they came out looking really good, in fairness. Well, I thought so. And then back to the dry brushing. So we've just dunked the shoes, and then we need to bring those highlights back. So I'm going over again with a light sand colour, just to get those high points back. So here I'm returning back to the sole brown that I used, and I'm not repainting the sole of his shoes. I'm just here and there touching up. So, because if you imagine, not every part of his shoe is going to be dirty, and we just need to reflect that. So moving on to the backs of his shoes. So I wanted to just go around the backs and the part in between the sole of his shoe and the shoe. I wanted just to show a little bit more difference. So I just used a black wash, and then I got carried away and I went all around the back of his shoe with this black wash. But it was very thin. So, yeah, it's just a very thin black wash. And then using a gunmetal grey, I did the stars and all the metalwork around his shoe. And the buckles, I did that. And then in a bit, you'll see me using a sponge to show wear and tear. And we'll talk about that when we get there. And here we are, doing the wear and tear. So I've used silver. And all I'm doing is putting a little bit of silver on the sponge, dabbing it off, and then dabbing on to the star of his shoe, or the spurs, or whatever you call them. Not all over, but just in certain areas. So imagine like he scuffed them, or some bits are cleaner than the others. Again, you'll see here the zenithal really working its magic, so to speak. So I'm using a blue, which I'm laying down evenly all around the model, but the front you can see is quite a light blue, and at the back that's remaining dark because of the zenithal. And then we're going to take a little bit of advantage of that, and we're going to mix these colours and dry brush. So we're going to dry brush lighter. So is the wear and tear on the front of his legs. You would mix a lighter blue, and then patches that are under his hand or the back of his legs, you would mix the blue with the black and go darker. So you're doing that mixing as you're going, as you're working your way round the model. And then I did feel that his pants were too light, so we're going to do a black wash thinly all over, just to darken them overall, because they're almost black, his trousers, but not quite. So moving on to do his belts, I'm using Beastly Brown here. So Beastly Brown is for his holster and belt, and then he's also got another belt on as well, which is on the top half of his body. And then I'm using this sand colour just to pick out all the little tiny stitching, which I loved doing. I could just zone out to this, it was really cool. Here I'm using a sepia wash and I'm building layers, and I mean lots of layers. I do a layer, I'll go away and do something else, and I'll come back and I'll put another layer on, and it's building up wornness. You know, it's which parts look worn. The buckle that goes round the holster, I imagined that to have worn a lot, and you'll see me later on, it'll go quite dark with all the layers. And then here I am just matting, using a matte varnish just to seal the work that I've done. And then moving on to, again, gunmetal grey, so I can paint his gun. At this point, you'll actually see the differences of the layers for the sepia that I've put on and round his belt. But I think at this point I'm still putting layers on. I'm still going back and going, oh, I'm touching up. That's what I'm doing, touching things up. And here you can see me doing that. So there I think, oh, it's not worn enough. Let's just darken that. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just going back in, and I keep on doing this. Here I'm just using a hull red for the handle of his gun. And then we're moving on to his hands. So this rosy red, I generally place it all over the place, but I focus on the places where your fingers will meet, so in all the nooks and crannies, the crevices. And then this natural flesh colour, I'll give it just a very light coat all round. And then I do a yellow wash, a red wash and a blue wash to give depth to the skin. Once I've done this blue wash, I add a little more blue so it's thicker, and then very finely I add veins into the backs of his hands because he's quite slim and you'd be able to see those. And yeah, that's exactly what I do. I add some darker veins, and right now they're really dark and you can see them, but once we've glazed and put different skin tones over, they've become buried within the skin. And this is the palette that I use. Again, it's the Fairy Flesh set. I love it, can't help it. It works. It's for me, I just like it. It's just good. And I'm not gonna lie, there is no right way, wrong way of doing this. It's just about where's the light coming from, which bits are going to be lighter, which bits are going to be darker. And that's kind of the principle that I stuck with. So I did lots of glazes at the front to lighten, and then behind, in the actual cup of his hand, it's darker there. So once you've got the tone of skin that you want, what I did was I varnished with a gloss, a high gloss, and that's to protect his hands really. So if you go over with another colour or you spray some, another colour over, even though I've masked, and I hate masking, by the way. So yeah, if I'd gone over it with blue at this point onto his hands, you could have just easily washed it off, which is quite cool. And then back with some dry brushing. And again, we're just picking out all the highlights of his shirt. So you'll see me there with blue and white in that little tray. So I'm mixing as I'm going. And then we're going to do Beastly Brown for his belt. I don't know how many belts this guy's got. I don't know even what this is for, but it's another belt. Beastly Brown, sepia to weather it and age it, and then the gunmetal grey for the buckles. And then onto the waistcoat. My very tidy masking. It's as good as it's going to get. But yeah, masked that off for his waistcoat, and then I went round the edges with a brush. Using a sponge, we created the pattern for his waistcoat. We turned the model so that there was no pattern evolving, which would happen naturally using the sponge. So you turn the model and you don't get any patterns. And then this is me just doing the inside of the fur with a lighter sandy colour, just the edges there. So moving on to his poncho, I used a earth green for this. I also did the top of his shirt, and then there's a black neckerchief as well, so I just used a flat black for that. Using the Panzer brown, we're just going to block paint, or block spray I should say, his hat. And then using Hull Red, we're going to colour the trim of his hat. So with the Panzer and the light sand colour, we're going to just dry brush some dirt, some wear and tear into his hat. And I thought about where he would pick up his hat, where would he, throw his hat down. It's been all over the floor, so it just made it a bit dirty. I actually let my brush go quite powdery, which I'm not upset about this time, and usually I would be. But I just went with it and allowed it to look dusty. I just think it fitted the piece, it fitted the environment. So I was quite happy with that. course, we shouldn't forget his bullet holes either. And then moving on to his face. So from pointing up his face, we're using like this rosy colour again that we used on his hands, around the back of his head, and then down his face I've used this base brown, and this is what it looked like when it came out of the booth. Again, nothing fancy. We're doing the washes, the red, yellow, blue wash. And this is what it looked like after that. And then this is the palette that I've used. Again, Fairy Flesh, which I love. I'm not gonna lie, it works. And we get to work. So with Clint, I was thinking about how his skin looks. So he's quite tanned, but round the corners of his eyes, he's browner. Round the corner of his eyes, and then obviously he's got his hat on, so there's a bit of shade along his brow. And hopefully you can see this building over this montage of clips. I was losing the red at this point, so I brought the red, that rosy colour, back into his skin. And round the fleshy parts, so around his cheeks and round the sides of his face. And then again thinking about where the sun was coming from, so his nose would be lighter, the high spots would be lighter. And then using the white wash, the red wash, I focused this on like around his nostrils, and round his ears and inside his ears and the creases of his eyes. And this is so thin, it's a lot of layers, so it's just building up those layers. Taking your time with it and building it. You'll also see me use this red wash for his lips. I don't use any other colour than the red wash to produce the colour of his lips, to darken them. It can sometimes feel like the washes that you're putting on aren't doing anything, but over time you do see the change, and especially, you know, through me videoing this process, you can see those changes obviously faster, which is helpful for me who's doing the painting. But be assured those layers are going down and they are having an impact. So at some point we're going to want to add hair, and this is going to give the piece context. And what I mean by that is you can decide whether you've finished with the skin. So I was lucky enough to have a hat, so you can on and off with his hat, and that kind of, does it look finished, does it not? Whereas hair, when you start putting hair in it, you can see actually the skin is lacking or not. So yeah, hair is helpful. And then it's painstaking, but worth it to do his beard and his hairline with individual strokes. Don't just be tempted to block paint his beard, because it will look it will look fake and it will look not right. So individually with the hairs, and then you'll see me just darken around the back because that's the darker spot. He's got his hat on, and so it's just me dry brushing the darkness into his hair. So I've whited his eyes. I used the white highlight that was in the wet palette just to do the whites of his eyes. And this is me holding my breath, doing his eyes. And it's around about now where I take my first breath and go for the second eye. And then I've started breathing again, and we're doing his eyebrows. So again, individual hairs, not just block. Don't block paint his eyebrows. You've got more control over it that way as well. So, and again, using the two variants of colours as well, because it's only little, but it's the little details that your eye picks up, and you will notice. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just filling in his eyebrows. So moving on to do his cigarette, and I use the highlight out of the wet palette to just give it its colour, the white colour, and then I make up a grey here for the ash at the end, and then I actually add in a dot of yellow, a dot of red, and I think a little orange, just to give it a glowing effect. And that's the head close up, now that we've finished it. So just moving back to the poncho, I'm using the skeleton hoard to create some shadows in those kind of folds of the material. And then using a very light sand colour, I painted the pattern on his poncho. So I'm thinking about future videos and what it is that you'd like to see. Would it be how we prepare and prime our models? Do you want to know a little bit more about weathering? We're going to talk about weathering in a minute, and the environmentals that I'm going to use. Is it a video on something like that, perhaps? Have a think and leave a comment. And I'm not guaranteeing, but we'll see what happens. And here we are with the environmental pigment effects. So this is a case of just brushing it onto whatever it is you want to kind of dirty up. So I've started at the bottom of the model on his shoes and the plinth, and then I kind of worked my way up. It looks a bit crazy at the moment. A lot of it does get brushed off, so the end result isn't as kind of mad as this is. So we're coming to the end now, and I hope that you've enjoyed our time together. And I have one final thing to do, and that's introduce Mr. Clint Eastwood.